Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha. Oh, do we have a cartel player? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Shodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad-gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta-vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, on this 8th day of August, 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the introduction on page 12, beginning in the second paragraph. We shall find, therefore. Okay. We shall find, therefore, in this Bhagavad-gita that the complete whole is comprised of the Supreme Controller, the controlled living entities, the cosmic manifestation, eternal time, and karma, or activities. And all of these are explained in this text. All of these taken completely form the complete whole, and the complete whole is called the Supreme Absolute Truth. The complete whole and the complete absolute truth are the complete personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. All manifestations are due to his different energies. He is the complete whole. It is also explained in the Gita that impersonal Brahman is also subordinate to the complete Supreme Person. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Brahman, which means the Brahman is situated, resting on me, Krishna says. Brahman is more explicitly explained in the Brahma Sutra to be like the rays of the sunshine. The impersonal Brahman is the shining rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Impersonal Brahman is incomplete realization of the Absolute Whole, and so also is the conception of Paramātmā. In the 15th chapter, it shall be seen that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purushottama, is above both impersonal Brahman and the partial realization of Paramātmā. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Satchit Ananda Vigraha. The Brahma Samhita begins in this way: Ishvarak Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Govinda, Krishna, is the cause of all causes. He is the primal cause, and he is the very form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Impersonal Brahman realization is the realization of his Sat, or eternity feature. Paramātmā realization is the realization of Sat Chit, eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss, in complete Vigraha, or form. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, some of you may, who are familiar with the Ishopanishad, will see echoes of the Ishopanishad in those two paragraphs. There's the invocation of the Ishopanishad. Om Purnamadak Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So the Absolute Truth is complete, and from him emanate so many complete units, which are all these universes and we ourselves. And even though he's emanating all these complete units, he still remains the complete balance. Now in that purport, Prabhupada has used that word complete at least 50 times. And he has taken some of that and he's put it right here in these two paragraphs. And that's why he says a complete whole. So let's meditate on that a minute. So first, Srila Prabhupada is reviewing and kind of recapitulating his explanation of the different topics that the Bhagavad-gita covers. And they are, for those who were here yesterday, a few of us. You were here? You weren't here? You were here. Oh, why? So, Ishvara, Prakriti, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Karma, and Kala. Ishvara is the Supreme Controller, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The Jiva is us, the irreducible particle of spirit, part and parcel of Krishna. Prabhupada was fond of saying that we have Krishna's qualities, but in minute degree. He's like the ocean, we're like the drop of ocean water. He's like the sun, we're like the sun ray. So, but the main thing is we're both conscious. We're conscious persons, irreducible persons. So that's Ishvara, Jiva. Prakriti. Now Prakriti often refers to the material energy. But as Krishna explained in the 7th chapter, this is the apara prakriti. This is the lower energy. And that means it's not conscious. And we're completely familiar with the elements, although we might not know the Sanskrit names. The boomer, apo, anano, like that. Earth, water, fire, which includes electricity, earth, water, air, which includes all gases, earth, water, air, fire, ether, which is space, and they get progressively more subtle, and then mind, intelligence, and ego. These are the 8 Bhinna Prakriti, separated energies of Krishna. The whole universe, everything we see is composed of a combination of those. Now, for the inanimate objects, there's no mind, intelligence, and ego. But there's a combination of earth, water, fire, ether. Just like this building. How did it come about? Well, some engineers, they created the blocks of stone or whatever it is that they built, the bricks. Out of earth, there's a heated, and it becomes hard, and it becomes like that, right? And then there's so many wires going through here for the electricity, that the electricity is part of it. Certainly air is part of it. It's taking up space. It's earth, water, fire, air, ether. So everything that we see, including our own bodies, is composed of that. But we have that added element because we're conscious beings of the mind, intelligence, and ego. So this is Prakriti. Now we also, as living entities, are Prakriti. But as Krishna says in 7th chapter, Paramātmā. We are the superior energy because we're conscious living beings. Irreducible, immortal, we never take birth, we never die. Jayate Mriti Bhakadashana, we'll learn in the 2nd chapter. For the soul is never birth, never dies. It's not coming into being. It's not like souls are coming into being as time passes. We're all emanations of Krishna, as eternal as Krishna, you see. But because we're inhabiting material bodies, which certainly have a beginning and an end, birth and death, we are under the impression that we are destructible. So the first lesson, as we'll see in chapter 2, after the introductory, the first chapter, is that the soul never dies, and all of us are transmigrating even now, even through this particular body. Our body is actually changing as we go through. We all can remember. Everyone probably can remember when he was 10 years old, right? We have certain memories, some of them not so vivid, some vivid. So we had a different body, didn't we? We all had a different body, younger body, different subtle body. The mind was certainly different. And as time goes on, it gradually changes. Now, I got an old body, but I'm confident in, the fact that I'm not going to die, but I'm going to go on to another body. And then I always like to refer to the 2nd chapter verse, and also in the 6th chapter, Krishna reiterates it, that just a little progress in devotional service assures you protection from the greatest danger. This is Neha Brikkamana Shosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Swapamappa Siddharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. Now the word Bhayat mostly means fear, but in this case it can also mean danger. Look it up in the dictionary. And so it protects you from the most fearful danger, which is losing the human form of life. All of these trees, these tall trees, I refer to them, the kind of the emblem of Pacific Beach. You see these huge faux coconut trees. They're not really coconut trees. But they stand there like sentinels, So every one of them is a living entity. They've been in there for 25, 40, 50 years. I don't know how old they are. Now their consciousness is very reduced, but still they're conscious living beings. And when that tree eventually is eliminated, it dies, then they'll go into another higher form of life, some higher plant or something, gradually coming up through the species until you come again to the human form of life. And so the human form of life is meant for making a solution to the main problems that the living entity has, the conditioned souls. We are conditioned souls. We are existing on certain conditions, because material conditions, and identifying with that. And the ultimate problem is our temporality in this body. We're eternal living beings. We belong in the spiritual world with Krishna. We left there by turning away from Krishna and becoming absorbed in this material energy. But we don't have to stay here. By the process of yoga, specifically bhakti yoga, we can purify our consciousness and return to that original state, which Prabhupada refers to here, of the nature of the Ishvara, the Supreme Ishvara, in the first verse of the 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha. So the Supreme Ishvara, Supreme Controller, is Krishna. And his form, his vigraha, is Satchit Ananda. Does anyone remember what that means? Hasigram, you know that.
Pure bliss.
Yeah, but there's three elements.
Yeah, eternity knowledge.
Yeah. A body which is full of Krishna's body, full of infinite knowledge and bliss, and is eternal. And so we have a body like that. We may not have the infinite knowledge and so forth, but we can have the unending happiness, which is completely different from what we experience here. Here, whatever we experience in pleasure and happiness, it's temporary, isn't it? You can only sustain it for a certain while, and then back to work. Got to go back to work, make some money, so you can, right? This doesn't last. That's the problem. It doesn't last. This is my favorite verse. I always come back to it. Yehi sangsparjaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evade adyantavanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. And here's the new translation. And that is, intelligent persons do not take part in the pleasures that are due to the contact of the senses with the sense objects. O son of Kunti, he's speaking to Arjuna, O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of misery and have a beginning and an end. And so the wise do not delight in them. You see? Then the question is, well, where are we going to find happiness? You know? So that's the previous verse. It says, how's it go? Oh, forgive me, 521? Yes, I know. Sorry, getting old. Bhaya sparshe svasaktatma vindityatpaniyat sukham sab brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Now that last phrase tells the whole story. Sukham akshayam ashnute. Ashnute means to enjoy. Sukham means happiness. And akshayam means without stopping, eternal. Where can you find happiness that doesn't stop? You can't. So he's described bhaya sparshesu asaktatma. Bhaya means external. Means also not attracted, not involved with these senses contacting the sense objects. That's the flickering happiness described in the next verse. Also, but where's vindityatmaniyat sukham, enjoying the happiness within. Now this is a basic point. Prabhupada refers to it in the introduction here, that all of us have an expansion of Krishna within our hearts called the Paramātmā. Krishna is sitting there in his plenary expansion. Paramātmā means the Supreme Soul who's fully conscious of everything that we're doing and giving us intelligence, remembrance, forgetfulness, as he says in this 15th chapter. So that Paramātmā is our best friend. And like by contacting Krishna in our hearts and externally, through the process of bhakti, we can begin to taste that unbreakable happiness. Why is it unbreakable? Because it's depending on the soul, the spirit, which is eternal, eternally conscious. So that art and science of turning away from matter and turning toward Krishna is what we practice here, and that's the whole goal of the process. Bhagavad-gita speaks of that. So Srila Prabhupada is giving us a little more insight now into this Ishvara Anadi Govinda. He has no beginning. He's the beginning of all. In his Govinda, that gives us a hint of his Vrindavan pastimes. And Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. This recalls, I remember when I was working at Back to Godhead, we would sometimes, Prabhupada was a student of Western philosophy too, in college. He took some courses there. So he was familiar with some of the ancient Greek philosophers. Socrates, he really liked Socrates. Because Socrates, famously, he was polluting the youth, by teaching them about the eternal soul and everything, So he was arrested, and he was tried and convicted, and he was sentenced to death by drinking poison, right? Hemlock. So Prabhupada would say, they came to him and he said, well, you're going to die now. We're going to execute you by drinking the poison. Well, see if you can catch me first. Meaning that he knew he was the spirit and not the body. And he was ready to drink the hemlock because he knew he wouldn't die. The body would die, but he wouldn't die. That's the key. And once we take that first step, a whole perspective in what's important in life should change. Because we're not just dealing with these few years of our lives, maximum 100 years. Who lives 100 years? It's just flickering compared to the thousands of births we've had before and our future. We may not have so many thousands of births. Let's try to have one birth in the spiritual world. But the point is, we never die. I did a little slogan, poetic slogan. You could have. Every body dies, right? Everybody dies. Nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body. You're pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's the summary of the Hare Krishna movement. Another one is this. Lord Chaitanya started the preaching movement in Navadvip, which is right there, part of Mayapur, near Mayapur, near present-day Kolkata. This is where we're building this huge temple, the Yogi. So he was born there, and he grew up there, and he was known as Nimai Pandit. And eventually started the Sankirtan movement there, and he had his two lieutenants, Nityananda, Lord Nityananda, and Haridas Thakur. Most of you are familiar with them, So he would send them out, preaching to the local, in Navadvip. And he told them simple preaching. Here's where you approach everybody in the house, knock on the door, And then when they open the door, tell them this. Bolo Krishna, Koro Krishna, what is it? Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shika. Thank you. So I put that in a little poem. Plus I added one little element. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions and to others them impart. That's the Hare Krishna movement. That's what Prabhupada said. He started the movement, just come and chant. Of course the prasadam was there, chanting, and then that was also Lord Chaitanya's program. But you chant, and gradually the books came out. Now here's Krishna's instructions, because you need to, fix the chanting as part of the whole program of Bhakti Yoga, which is outlined in the Bhagavad-gita. So, chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Of course, the chanting is part of the worship, but then he installed deities. And follow his instructions. Where do we find his instructions? Bhagavad-gita, and they're also extensively in the Bhagavatam. Of course, ultimately, Vyasadeva, who wrote the Bhagavatam, was an incarnation of Krishna, expansion of Krishna, so there were all his instructions. But he has this wonderful other Gita in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam called the Uddhava Gita. He had a very intimate friend and disciple called Uddhava. And in the last stage, before he left this planet, Krishna, he spoke this Uddhava Gita, which was recorded there in the 11th canto. And it expands on many of the same themes of the Bhagavad-gita. So, chant Shri Krishna's name, worship him with all your heart, follow his instructions, and to others them impart. And if we can do that, then we can go back to God. So I'm going to go on unless there's any discussion. Yes, but we need the mic. There's a mic over there. Can you make it? Because we have people in the ether. Listen.
Excuse me. The Purushottam?
Purushottama.
Yeah. That we're in that month right now, right?
I'm sorry?
Is that
yes, the month. Purushottama Adhika Mas. Adhika is an extra month. You know how that works?
But does the context that it's being, I know it's the name for Lord Krishna, but using it in this reference, does it have?
No, well, Purushottama is a word that especially comes up in the 15th chapter. It's called Purushottama Yoga, where Krishna reveals that he is that Purushottama. And he also talks about himself as the Supersoul. Purushottama simply means the ultimate person, Uttama, the supreme person. So it's a name it often refers to the Supersoul, but it refers to Krishna in general. He's Purusha Uttama, Purushottama.
So then it's just a coincidence that we're in that month.
Totally.
That happens every couple of years.
Every 3 years.
And
yeah.
Like once in a blue moon.
Yeah. Well, it's not quite that.
That's Krishna's month, Purushottam month. This is the Adhik Mas. There's Krishna's month.
Yes, it's a special, an added month. You know how it works. It's like we have leap year. This is a leap month to make it all come out even. And there's also, it's interesting because we suspend, we're in the middle of what's called Chaturmasya. There's a 4-month period I won't get into all the details, but there's different, we observe it, one of the ways we observe it is like not eating certain foods for each month. So this one was spinach, cooked greens, you know. So there's a lady in the kitchen now named Ananga Priya who makes a very nice palak paneer. The palak is the spinach part, and the paneer is the little cubes of, you know, milk curd. So, but she, you know, she would make me a little portion of that, and, you know, every time she comes. But she had to stop when the Chaturmasi came, because this is, I think, the first month, isn't it? But it was not eating. But then she said, that's okay, because it's an interruption after 2 weeks. Now we can, she made it. When it stops in a couple of weeks, then again we can't have it. It's a wonderful way of observing. And Purushottama is very powerful. Anything you do, any service you do is multiplied how many times? 1,000? Yeah. So we should chant. Yeah. And that's why you all come, right? Usually I have 3-4 people now. Okay, let's go on. Oh, you have something?
Yes.
You hold it.
Yeah. I hope this isn't asinine or overly...
Is it lit?
Yes, green.
Okay, there you go.
Question, but
yeah.
I'm wondering what a person is, and I don't mean that as like a speculative or whatever, because different cultures have different concepts of what it means to be a person. Like in some cultures, a person is to be an atomic element of a broader whole. In other cultures, a person, like the concept of person is variable. So I wonder what's the essential quality of being a person according to this philosophy.
A person is a conscious being who in the original manifestation has these senses. You know, we have what we call the Gyanendriya, the knowledge-acquiring senses, the eyes, ears, touch, sense of smell, taste, you know, and working senses, hands, feet, etc. You know, and we have a personality. We have a unique personality, which is now covered in our conditioned state. We're still persons, and we can also look at the animals, you know, and dogs. Why do people love dogs? Because there's a certain personality there, you know. It's a substitute. So, it becomes more and more covered. The personhood becomes covered until you get down to the germs and the amoebas, you know, which are hardly manifesting anything. But there's some consciousness there, you know. So, but Krishna is the Supreme Person. He manifests these in the most excellent and supernatural way. You know, I mean, he can see. He sees everything that's going on. You know, he knows everything that's going on, and each of his senses can perform the function of all the others. That's from the Brahma Samhita. Angana yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti. You know, so that's why, you know, we offer food. People say, yeah, you offered the food, but it's still there. Did he eat it? Yes, he did. Well, how did he eat it? You know, by looking at it. He can eat through his eyes. He sees the love and devotion that you put into it. That's really what he wants. You know, he sees that. And sometimes he does eat it. There's all certain supernatural times when that. So the point is that Krishna is the Supreme Person, and all the other persons are expansions of him, and we reflect his you know, we have some of that element that Krishna has, but in minute degree. But he also expands in plenary portions. Like Vishnu is just as powerful as Krishna, but he doesn't manifest all the qualities of Krishna. This is in the Nectar of Devotion. It's a wonderful book, where it describes the different levels of personhood and how you can have different numbers of the 64 qualities that Krishna has. We can have 50. Prabhupada loved the percentages. 78%. We can have 78%, but in minute degree. You know, what are some of the qualities? We know what they are. Very gentle, kind, clever, excellent dresser. I never manifested that quality at all. You know. But the point is that we have his quality, but there's 5 that we can't have, but that Shiva can have. Shiva has, you know. I won't get into detail, but the unique ones that Krishna has that no one else has, even his Vishnu forms or anything. Sarvabhuta Chamatkara Lila Kalola Vadadi. He's an ocean full of wonderful pastimes that astound everybody, you know. Sarvad Bhuta Chamalila Atulya Marara Prem Mandita Priya Mandala. So he's always surrounded by devotees who are at the highest levels of prema for him, and that refers to the gopis. Atulya Marara Prema Mandita Priya Mandala. Trijagan Manasarka Shi Mulali Kalakujata, his beautiful flute playing attracts everyone in the universe. And Asamanodva Rupa Sri Vismapita Chadasata. Unequaled and unsurpassed beauty and opulence, beyond even the Vishnu forms. So that's what the ultimate person is. Krishna. He manifests all these. We have a tiny amount of that, but we still have them, those qualities of consciousness and the senses and liking and so many different things. So that's what personhood means. The main thing is conscious entities. All right, let's go on. Where was it? The complete whole personality of Godhead? No, I didn't get to that part. People with less intelligence. All right. More completeness. Prabhupada he's referring to his Ishopanishad, guaranteed. The complete purport. Look at the invocation purport. People with less intelligence consider the supreme truth to be impersonal, but he is a transcendental person, and this is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam, Kata Upanishad 2.2.13. As we are all individual living beings and have our individuality, the Supreme Absolute Truth is also, in the ultimate issue, a person, and realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all of the transcendental features in his complete form. Here we go. The complete whole is not formless. If he is formless, or this has been fixed to the subjunctive, if he were formless, or if he were less than any other thing, then if he were less than any other thing, then he could not be the complete whole. The complete whole must have everything within our experience and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. And Prabhupada is going on with the completeness. So just this Nityanam Chaitanya Chaitanya. This is one of the first verses I ever learned. I always hear it in Brooklyn in '73. Somehow a lot of devotees were quoting it. And it goes on. So Nitya is one eternal. Nityanam is plural. So all of and Chaitanas is singular. Chaitananam is plural. So it means of all the eternal conscious beings, which includes all of us plus God, there is one special eternal being, Nityo Nityanam. And what is he doing? Eko Bahunam Yobadadati Kaman. That one, Eko, is supplying all the necessities for the myriad of other individual eternal conscious living beings. And there can only be one who could do that, and that's Krishna. So that's what they're referring to. Okay, let's go on with the complete whole. The personality of Godhead has immense potencies. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shuyate. How Krishna is acting in different potencies is also explained in the Bhagavad-gita. This phenomenal world, or material world, in which we are placed is also complete in itself, because the 24 elements of which this material universe is a temporary manifestation, according to Sankhya philosophy, are completely adjusted to produce complete resources which are necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. There is nothing extraneous, nor is there anything needed. This manifestation has its own time fixed by the energy of the Supreme Whole, and when its time is complete, these temporary manifestations will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete. There is complete facility for the small complete units, namely the living entities, to realize the complete, and all sorts of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete. So Bhagavad-gita contains the complete knowledge of Vedic wisdom. And I think that ends Prabhupada's quotation from the Ishopanishad. See, the history of this introduction is interesting. And I mentioned it last night, I think, but there's a lot of new people here, so I'll just tell you the history. So Prabhupada came to America in 1965 at great difficulty on the cargo ship Jaladuta. And having arrived in New York, he didn't stay there. He went to to Pennsylvania, where he had a contact, which is in western Pennsylvania, Butler. And eventually he came back. He didn't want to stay there. He wanted to preach in New York, the most important city of the world. So he ended up going to New York. There was a yogi associate of his. He found out Dr. Mishra uptown. He was preaching Hatha Yoga. He was able to stay at his ashram and then at one of his offices for some time. So Prabhupada just planned to stay for a couple of months. He wrote that in his diary. He says, I have my return ticket for a couple of months. In fact, he would sometimes visit the port, but he would never get on a boat. He would always, he was trying to fulfill the desire and the order of a spiritual master that he preached Krishna consciousness in the West in English. So he had that order. He was 69. His health wasn't that great, but he wanted to try to do it as far as he could possibly do it. So while he was uptown, living near Riverside Drive, on Riverside Drive, which is near the Hudson River, in an office that Dr. Mishra had let him use. There was no place to cook. He had to walk halfway across town in order to cook his meals. So it was difficult. But someone gifted him a big reel-to-reel tape recorder. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those. I had one of those once before the small ones came out. And they showed him how to use it. And so what did he use it for? Recording this introduction to the Bhagavad-gita. He didn't know when or if he was going to be able to publish the whole book, but he was giving this complete view of the contents of the Gita. And he had already written this complete purport. You see, Prabhupada was publishing in India, in English, Back to Godhead magazine from 1944. This is over 20 years earlier he started. But it came out, then stopped coming out. It was hard to keep it up. But he did a number of issues. And he was serializing the Ishopanishad. And so this complete purport was written because it's the first verse, the invocation, even before Mantra 1. And so I think he was referring to that as he was dictating this particular section of the introduction. He saw, well, this is... I can work this into the introduction, so he's doing it. That's why it's so complete. Because that verse, as I say, Om Purnamadak Purnam, the word Purnam appears about 4 or 5 times in that one verse. He's the complete whole, from him comes the complete unit, and every unit is complete like that. And even though those complete units are coming, still the complete remains complete. Om Purnamadak Purnamadak Purnam. It's reflected in this introduction. But now I think he's finished with that. We did Parasa Shakti. Okay. All Vedic knowledge, I think we're at. Yes. All Vedic knowledge is infallible, and Hindus accept Vedic knowledge to be complete and infallible. He's still going. For example, cow dung is the stool of an animal, and according to the Smriti, or Vedic injunction, if one touches the stool of an animal, he has to take a bath to purify himself. But in the Vedic scriptures, cow dung is considered to be a purifying agent. One might consider this to be contradictory, but it is accepted because it is Vedic injunction, and indeed, by accepting this, one will not commit a mistake. Subsequently, it has been proved by modern science that cow dung contains all antiseptic properties. So Vedic knowledge is complete because it is above all doubts and mistakes, and the Bhagavad-gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we are researching things with imperfect senses. We have to accept perfect knowledge which comes down, as is stated in the Bhagavad-gita, by the Parampara, or disciplic succession. We have to receive knowledge from the proper source in disciplic succession, beginning with the Supreme Spiritual Master, the Lord Himself, and handed down to a succession of spiritual masters. Arjuna, the student who took lessons from Lord Shri Krishna, accepts everything that he says without contradicting him. One is not allowed to accept one portion of the Bhagavad-gita and not another. No, we must accept the Bhagavad-gita without interpretation, without deletion, and without our own whimsical participation in the matter. The Gita should be taken as the most perfect presentation of Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is received from transcendental sources, and the first words were spoken by the Lord Himself. The words spoken by the Lord are called apaurushaya, meaning that they are different from words spoken by a person of the mundane world who is infected with 4 defects. In other words, a superhuman. And what are those defects? A mundane who, 1, is sure to commit mistakes, 2, is invariably illusion, 3, has the tendency to cheat others, and 4, is limited by imperfect senses. With these 4 imperfections, one cannot deliver perfect information of all-pervading knowledge. Vedic knowledge is not imparted by such defective living entities. It was imparted unto the heart of Brahma, the first created living being, and Brahma, in his turn, disseminated this knowledge to his sons and disciples, as he originally received it from the Lord. The Lord is Purnam, all perfect, and there is no possibility of his becoming subjected to the laws of material nature. One should therefore be intelligent enough to know that the Lord is the only proprietor of everything in the universe, and that he is the original creator, the creator of Brahma. In the 11th chapter, the Lord is addressed as Prapitamaha, because Brahma is addressed as Pitamaha, the grandfather, and he, the Lord, is the creator of the grandfather. So no one should claim to be the proprietor of anything. One should accept only things set aside for him by the Lord as his quota for his maintenance. And there we are, the first verse of the Isha Upanishad. Isha Vashamidam Sarvam. So this Prabhupada is trying to establish in our minds the authority of the Bhagavad-gita. And this is a critical thing, because everything in the process of devotional service begins with faith. In fact, faith is an indelible concomitant of life in this world. I like to point out, just we're driving down Grand Avenue, and there's a bunch of lights, but you can get going pretty good there. And as you come up, as everyone who drives a car knows, when you come up to the light, it's green. Oh, I'm just going to zip right through. You have really strong faith that the other one is red, right? If you didn't, you would just inch up and see. It might as well be a stop sign. So that's this one instance. Faith is part of our life, And the problem is, in the material world, that faith is often betrayed. You have confidence in your body, strong body. I've been working out, and my diet is good, and everything. But the body betrays you eventually. It's not infallible. It's fallible. So that's the problem with material things. Just like I quoted that verse about the pleasure, the pleasures that are due to the senses, content, sense objects. So I'll confess, when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, I was totally addicted to these things. They were called chocolate kisses or something. Hershey, little lumps of chocolate, And every time someone had a birthday, they were there, and kid's birthday, So I became a bit of a chocolate addict, honestly. So, but obviously, I came out of that. If I had kept doing that, who knows? I would probably be weigh twice as much I weigh now, And the point is, there's a limit to how, both in time and in ability to enjoy of all these material pleasures. And so, but you have confidence. Yeah, I know this chocolate milk drink. I've had it before. And so you have faith that it's going to be the same thing. And so in other words, there's all these expectations which form your faith in your life, material world. But inevitably things change. You change, your environment changes. To move. I remember when I had these best friends, they moved away, And we went to visit them in a new place, a 15-minute drive. It wasn't the same, no more. So these are kind of a traumatic experience. But that's what material life is that you if you're lucky, you eke out a certain sense of security, your life is going along. But then things happen, someone dies, or disease, or threefold miseries. Just like now, have you been seeing those incredible floods in India now? It's just catastrophic in Himachal, in northern India. And they're also down even in Yamuna, down in Vrindavan. You see it, yeah. Not as catastrophic, but still. So this is what the material will like. Prabhupada would often point out, in addition to the big 4, birth, old age, disease, and death. Okay, all of us are going to go through those. We've been through some of them this life, and we'll be through. So those are baked into having a material body. But there's 3 others that encompass these in some ways. Adi Bhautik, Adi Atmic, and Adi Daivik miseries. Now, you may not know those names, but we certainly know them. We're familiar with them. Adhyatmic, your own body and mind is giving you problems. We had a wonderful bhakta here, Jamal. He was very tall. He had a migraine problem. Sometimes you wouldn't see him in the morning and say, "Oh, the migraine's giving me trouble." So that's adhyatmic. He had it for a long time, and he just tried to deal with it, manage it. We all experienced that. Then you have adibautic, other living beings giving you trouble. Oftentimes, human beings, but it can be others. Probably the bed bugs. You had experience with that. I mean, this is life in this world. And we just had Omicron. I don't know, are these viruses even considered living? I don't know. Somehow there's life there. But this certainly was giving a lot of problem. And then you have the adidaivic, which is like the earthquakes and the storms and the droughts and the floods and all of these things that come. You can't do anything about them. You have to deal with them. Hurricanes. When I lived in Miami, we were always watching for that. So these are either threatening us, which itself is a misery, the fear and the insurance payments and all that stuff is negative, or you're actually suffering from one or more of them, at a certain time. That's life in the material world. That's what it means to be in a material body. And so then there's the alternative, because the material thing, there is no alternative. You have to deal with it. That's just the way it is, ups and downs. That's what life is, No, it isn't. There's another plane of existence. And believing in that faith is nourished by associating with those who are on it. Like these words that Srila Prabhupada writes, you get the sense as he's writing these that this is not conjecture on his part. He's writing from experience here, and he's living it. And we can see, he gave his association. There's a set of, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, a set of films that were made that are now on YouTube called Following Srila Prabhupada. Just look them up. There's, I think, 11 of them. And all the video that was shot during Prabhupada's time was compiled by Yadubar Prabhu. And he went around, and this was like made 25 years ago at least. He went around to all the devotees who were in the films, and he got them to narrate what's going on in them. And then he came here maybe 10 years ago, 11, 12, 15 years, and he stayed in my apartment for months, and he was typing out captions. In other words, because why? Because it's English. Why can't we understand English? But it was for England. They couldn't understand the American accent, but for the Indians who lived there. So he wanted to put the captions in the subtitles. So it took him a while. But they're just wonderful to see Prabhupada interacting and gradually the movement growing, The 1970 Rath Yatra in San Francisco, hundreds and hundreds of devotees, thousands and thousands of people in Golden Case Park marching along with the two carts. The Balaram cart kind of conked out after a few 100 feet, yeah. The Subhadra cart, the wheel bent. But there were so many thousands of people that Narayana said, "Okay, I need 100 people to come and straighten the wheel out," and they were able to do that, and the cart was going. So many miracles. It's really amazing to see. And Prabhupada dancing in, I think it was the 73 or 74 London Rath Yatra. He was ill, supposedly, He wasn't going to go, but he said, "Yes, I have to go." So he went, but he didn't go on the cart. He was walking in front of the Jagannath cart, I think, and he was dancing, and everyone was absolutely amazed. He was jumping sometimes and like this. And so that's all recorded for posterity, and you can really get inspired by that. But what you see is, here's someone who's embodying this philosophy. So many external things could have brought him, misery, depression, never. He was always determined to serve Krishna and maintaining his consciousness through it all, even keel and joy. So the reason I mention that is that we can have faith in these things, even though there's so many supernatural things that we can't check with our immediate senses. But the wonderful thing is, if you start the process, especially chanting, and you do it sincerely, even just a couple of rounds a day, you'll feel your consciousness changing. And you'll feel more attraction to the deity. You'll like the whole thing. It begins to awaken. And you can experience the wonderful qualities of Krishna consciousness, even in the early stages. That gives you more and more faith. Oh, this is real. I can actually achieve, perfection here. And again, You know, in my old dotage here, I take great encouragement from this, that there's no loss or diminution. And so there's this one more verse I'll share with you. From, Prabhupada would always quote in the 5th chapter, 1st canto, Narada Muni is encouraging Vyasadeva to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he says, Chaktvasa dharmam chadanam bhajang hare bhajan napakpo tapate tato yadi yatra kavabad dharma buddha mushikim kovata apto abhajatam sudharmata. One who gives up his material duties in the world, or, you know, de-emphasizes them, Chaktvasa dharmam and begins worshipping the lotus feet of Hari Krishna, chadanam bhajan, but apakpo but without completing the course, he kind of falls away from the path and doesn't complete the course of Bhagavad, doesn't become completely pure in his lifetime. Where is there any loss? Because however much progress he made, he'll start in the next life. There's no loss or diminution. Whereas materially, Bezos and these other billionaires, hey, they're going to leave it all here. They're not going to take one penny with them. It's all completely futile, what they're trying to, you know, it's a complete illusion. But spiritual assets are for eternity. So, but then on the other hand, one who very nicely follows his material duties and does everything, but there's no bhakti, what does he gain? Because he leaves everything behind, you see? Therefore, the next verse says, Tasaiva heto prayateta kovida. That one who is kovida, intelligent, should strive for that goal that you cannot achieve from going up to Brahma Loka down to Patala Loka. In other words, material world, you know, you cannot achieve. This is supernatural, spiritual goals. Strive for that, because you're a winner, no matter what, you know, even if you just do a little bit. And your happiness and distress are already programmed from your previous life. You can't increase them, so there's no point. Increase the happiness, decrease the stress. You're going to suffer that. That'll happen. But if you practice bhakti, then you can become equipoised in happiness and distress. You know, this is all happening from previous program. But what I can do is increase my attraction to Krishna. That's in my hand, and that's my eternal asset. So that confidence in that, the truth of that, comes from reading Prabhupada's books, because we're associating with Srila Prabhupada, the best way of association, and it increases your confidence in the faith. So we're going to have to stop now. If there's any questions or comments, we'll have to wait till after the RT. But I can't leave you without at least one poem. So this is a beautiful verse that Lord Chaitanya quoted near the beginnings of instructions to Sanatana Goswami on the process of devotional service. So he says, I just heard Prabhupada quote it on a tape. Kama dinam katina katita padita durnideshas tesham jata mayna karunanatrapano prashantihi utsrijayata natiyotapate sampratam labna buddhis tvamayatak shadanamabhayam mamna yung svatma dasye. In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. So that's purifying the intelligence is the key. And that's why we have Bhagavad-gita class. So you're all invited tomorrow, reconvene, at the same time, same station. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Now I have RT can see the beautiful lordships in their evening outfit.